Okay, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. To have a really cool review for you guys from the brand CWC or Cabot Watch Company. They're an independent heritage brand that's best known for their military issued wristwatches, spanning everything from the early 70s up until kind of modern times, even today. They're still very much ingrained within that military space. Now, in terms of the type of watch, this is a dive watch, some key characteristics and something you're looking for a diver. Of course, you want to find water resistance, simply some type of screw down crown, something that's tough, legible with a dive time bezel or a diver's extension is always nice if on bracelet. And one thing to clarify, the screw down crown isn't necessarily where it's getting its water resistance. It's just paired to that, right? It's not just the gaskets in the crown or it being a screw down crown. There are actually pretty deep diving watches that are out there that don't have screw down crowns. The screw down crown typically just helps you ensure that your gaskets are engaged by it being screwed down versus being able to be at a push pull style. So just to clarify for anybody that wants to nitpick, this is CWC's Ti300, and it's essentially a titanium version of their iconic divers watches that are now very light and tough with the requisite fixed spring bars, which is awesome. And these are actually integrated into the case for this titanium example versus them just being, the shoulderless spring bars that typically become affixed to standard steel cases. Now, the result is something that is both functional and aesthetic without detracting from their lineage of their issued watches. The Ti300 has Royal Navy heritage running through its every curve of its case, every turn of its bezel, and every time you strap it on. These are currently sold out. They were a limited run, and this was kindly lent into the channel by Brando, the owner of Anchor Strap Company. So, of course, I'll be featuring it on an Anchor strap, one of their elastic straps that I really, really enjoy, and it's also on a limited and no longer available matte blasted clasp. And hey, if you guys want that though, maybe you could let him know he should do another run because they're that cool. So with all that said, let's go ahead and zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay guys, now as you can see, very handsome. And some of you are saying, oh, well, that dial looks like an Omega CMAS. Oh, look. Those specs were established by the British Ministry of Defense. So this is also something that was meant to meet, at least this design language was meant to meet those requirements. So that's why there is some crossover. But as you can also see, there are some things that are quite different, and you might liken them to other barrel-shaped cases of the 1970s, and that's fine. There was a lot of crossover in terms of production, in terms of, heritage. There's a lot of people's hands that were in the same pot in terms of this design aesthetic. But here's one thing that makes this unique is that this does have a genuine tie to military issue wristwatches, and I like that. And I do love this strap pairing. I personally paired this on here because this is a strap that I got, and even of course had to pull the trigger on one of these limited buckles while I could, and I really dig it, guys. This is Anchor Strap Company's deployant elastic strap, and it's and I like it a lot, I have to say. I didn't do the heavy lifting, but I did talk to Brando about the idea for something like this, and then it was made, and that was awesome. So if you are interested in seeing anything, he's very open. So reach out if there's something that you see or you have any ideas, because who knows, maybe it'll come into production one day. So back to the watch here. Now, it has about a 41.5 millimeter diameter. That's not including these protruding crown guards. A lot of times when you see them listed at like 45, that's where they're counting the 45 millimeters from. It's about 41.5. It's only 11.9 millimeters thick, thanks to that high accuracy and high torque quartz movement. You can see the finishing is very, very handsome there. The lug to lug is only 46.7 millimeters, and this is built out of grade 5 titanium with a matte bead blasted finish. It does also have a flat sapphire with an inner anti-reflective coating, and it has a screw down crown that is unsigned. 120 click bezel. Let's hear it. Ooh. Yes. I'm used to being let down by titanium bezel actions. This is immaculate. Great balance of tactile clickiness and smoothness. You can rock it slightly, but nothing that feels sloppy. So I gotta do that again. I like this. This has me hooked. Even the bezel grip, the interaction with your fingertips is very engaged. I do enjoy that. So very, very nice action on this. And then you can see look at that. Fixed spring bars integrated into the case. Very cool. Some of you might not like that. Some of you will only want this watch for that feature. So it is what it is. You can't make everyone happy. And also you're probably noticing, look at the 3D level of the thickness for that lume. I have a feeling when we get to that low light transition portion, you guys are going to get really excited for this. Okay. Now back into some of the details. The movement inside, although you can't see it, is actually a high accuracy and high torque quartz ETA F06.402, which has, depending on what battery goes in, it could be anywhere from 5 to 7 years. And then accuracy to plus or minus 10 seconds per year. Yes, plus or minus 10 seconds per year. That is awesome. And the fact that the battery life, even on the short end, can be 5 years. That's also awesome. So I dig that a whole lot. Now, the case back is solid and etched, as you guys can see here. Nothing too crazy to write home about. It does have individually engraved numbering there because this was a limited run. But we won't need to show you that. In terms of the dial, you get this beautiful matte black dial, guys. Very retro, very function forward. It does have a printed index, but it is thickly applied in terms of the way that they printed the lume on there. So very nice. You're getting painted hands for high contrast. And then you're getting X1C3 Super Luminova. So that's going to be the really nice high grade modern C3 lume. So this thing is going to really, really glow. And I think even at the day glow, even though it does have a slightly blue hue green hue to it, it still, for me, renders white. It only probably looks less white because you can see, of course, actual white framing around that sword hand style. And then, of course, white printing. So it's contrasting. I think, otherwise, this is completely acceptable. I know some people don't like any tint or tinge of color in their white luminescence. I think this is completely acceptable, especially playing off of the whole military aesthetic function forward theme. So with that said, let's actually get it on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, or 19 centimeters in circumference, that wears well. Definitely full size, but not oversized. I do dig that. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, it's quite a bit of perspective distortion. All of a sudden, the sides of my wrist are really falling off, and it's just the top there, which is, giving you that 3D pop, which is nice, but also can be quite deceiving in terms of size and scale. So what I'll do is keep my wrist nice and low, and then just tighten up the frame so that you guys can get still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio as to how this may lay on your own wrist. And check that out. Beautiful. Look at those curves. I love the sharpness. Now, they're not sharp to the touch. It's more like Lego sharp, right? Like, not sharp to the touch, but definitely very sharp to the eye. Of course, I know some of you parents out there, the first thing you heard was Lego and you thought sharp, because if you were to step on it, it would be sharp. But yeah, this is not going to hurt my hand by any means. Maybe if I was to step on this, it wouldn't feel good. But look at the beautiful transitions. And the fact that you can see that in a matte blasted finish, you can see how beautiful the transitions on these bevels are. That speaks volumes. And then even when you look at the hue, as the way the light is grabbing this, you can even see the sharpness and the preciseness on the execution of that bezel grip. Very, very cool. This one, even though the brand hasn't really been on my radar too much. I mean, I've been aware of CWC for many years. I haven't been super interested in a lot of their models because it's a pretty crowded space in terms of that, military heritage reissue retro space, especially when you think about Ministry of Defense MOD style watches. There's a lot of carryover. But this one, man, this caught my eye. Number one, the matte finish. Number two, the fixed spring bars, of course, very big right now, thanks to Tudor and their FXD line. But that, and then the fact that they decided, hey, let's do a high accuracy, high torque quartz. That also, I mean, there's just, it's a unique offering, and that's what makes it stand out to me, right? Because I have collections of watches. I'm not looking for a one and done do it all. I have collections of do it all one and done watches. So things that are unique make me kind of gravitate towards them, because it makes me think, oh, I need to justify how I could have this in my collection, because I don't have other things that are like it that fill that same space. So, this thing is cool, guys. I do enjoy the look, the feel. I mean, I'm tempted to just, the ASMR of this is lovely. Fast or slow, very satisfying. All right, so let's go ahead, get this off the wrist, set up for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Hey, look at that Lume. Absolutely fantastic. So again, it just fits within that function forward theme. I love a well-executed theme, whether it be down to the function forward fixed spring bars that are integrated into that grade 5 titanium case, the use of the best Lume available, the thick application of that Lume, the choice to say, hey, let's go ahead and get a high accuracy quartz movement in there and high torque, right? So it's going to be something that is both durable and accurate, so it can deliver. There's just a lot to like here. Again, even though it's not in my normal lane, I'm captivated by this one. So with that said, we'll go ahead and move into some low light transition, which is something I always like to work in, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So as I see with these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting, you guys can see, again, clarity is key here. Look at this, even in just... look at that. Barely any lighting. You're going to be able to see so many little indexes there. And then when you can't, you can still get the main gist of the story thanks to the luminescence. So very, very nice. And again, that matte finish on that grade 5 titanium is really beautifully done, I have to say. Very impressed. This thing, it's just, if you're an EDC guy, right, and grade 5 titanium, when you think about, your knife handle scales, stuff like Chris Reeve levels of execution, their new glass blasted finish, it reminds me of that. It takes something that is this industrial kind of working finish and just turns it into something that just feels premium and purposeful and deliberate, and I like that a whole lot. Ooh. Look at that. Look at the visibility. That thing is cool. All right. Okay. That's not mine, and it can't be mine, and I'm sad. But, man, this thing's cool, and I'm really appreciative to Brando for letting me spend some time with it. So we'll get into some closing thoughts. On wrist, you're going to get that classic diver wear and that feel that does, I'd say, is 100% full size without approaching oversized. And there's a lot of watches that do that. Don't be dissuaded when you see ultimate numbers and stuff like that. If you, one of the nice things, even though this is not available, there are, of course, people who are selling these. They're selling them for exorbitant amounts, whatever. If it's worth it to you, go for it. But the nice thing is that it's a case and dial layout that carry over, proportions that carry over. So if this is something that interests you, maybe you take a regular variation of one of these. Because yeah, I do think it is really well proportioned and executed. Now, in terms of model variants, check the site links for current options and availability. Of course, like I mentioned, this particular one in this limited run is actually no longer available. But you never know if somebody is going to be wheeling and dealing on the side, or if they do another run with a slight variation. Who knows? Maybe they'll do one with a date in the future. In terms of comparable models, guys, I'm not huge into high accuracy quartz. So I'm really not the best resource to recall any current direct market competitors. But to me, this is a very unique offering combining heritage, right, which is something that is always on my radar. Modern titanium construction, another thing that is, on the contemporary side has been very popular, and a dependable, worry-free accuracy, which I think speaks to anybody who wears a wristwatch. So I know sometimes, you worry about battery change intervals, but I think with this 5 to 7 years, that's not too bad at all. Some of you guys don't even hold on to watches that long. There's a lot of flippers, serial flippers that are out there. You know who I'm talking to. So some of you will never even have to worry about swapping out the battery here. So why even act like that's an issue? It's like when people are worried about servicing their automatic movements and then they don't even keep the watches as long as it would take for them to ever get a service anyway. So for me, guys, bottom line, while CWC isn't a brand I've actively pursued in the past, seeing this one in the metal absolutely makes me reconsider, really what they have to offer as a whole. And it makes me more curious to learn more about this very special brand. So thanks again to Brando from Anchor Strap Company for kindly lending me this limited example, so that I could share it with you guys in this video review. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please hit like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.